So Shrutavita Treya. Shrutavita Treya, Mitra Varuna. These gods, Mitra, Varuna, Aryaman, Bhaga, these are the guardians of the supramental world. They were always mysterious to me. I never could really, truly, fully relate to them. Because they're coming from that other realm, from somewhere, from beyond. But since we made this journey with Agni, and we understood where we are moving, and that Ashwamedha last understanding that we overcome, we move into wider space, and then suddenly it clicked and it made sense. Who are these Mitra Varuna, where they are coming from, and what they are doing here? Om Ritena Rutam Apihitam Dharuvam Vam Suryasya Yatra Vimunchati Ashvam Dasha Shata Sahatasthu Tadekam Devanam Shreshtham Vapusham Apashyam Tatsuvam Mitra Varuna Mahitvam Irmatasthushir Ahabhir Duduhre Vishva Pinvatha Svasarasya Dhena Anuvam Ekah Paviravavartam Adharayatam Prithivim Utadyam Mitra Rajana Varuna Mahobi Vardhayatam Oshadhir Pinvatam Ga Avavrishtim Srijatam Jiradanu Avam Ashvasah Suyujo Vahantu Yatarashmaya Upayantu Arvak Bharatasya Nirnig Anuvartate Vam Upasindhavar Pradiviksharanti Anushrutam Amatim Vardhad Urvim Barhir Ivayajusha Rakshamana Namasvanta Dhrita Dakshadhi Garte Mitra Sathe Varune Lasvantaha Akravihasta Sukrute Paraspayam Trasathe Varune Lasvantaha Rajana Kshetram Aharniyamana Sahasrasthunam Babhrithav Sahadvau Hiranyanirnegayo Asyasthuna Vibhrajate Divi Ashvajaniva Bhadre Kshetre Nimiha Tilvile Vasanema Madhvo Adhigartiyasya Hiranyarupam Ushaso Vyushtav Ayasthunam Udita Suryasya Arohatho Varuna Mitragartam Ataschakshati Aditim Ditim Cha Yad Bamhishtham Nadi Vidhe Sudanu Achidram Sharma Bhuvanasya Gopam Tenano Mitra Varuna Vavishtam Sisha Santo Jigivan Savsiyama Om. Now we are moving into the transcendental domain. The laws of the 1,000-pillared home of truth and bliss. Something which we never had yet here, but it is somewhere there. Something. The 1,000-pillared home of truth and bliss. The Rishi hymns the eternal and immutable truth, of which the truth in mutable things is the Veda. That is the goal of the journey of the manifested Son of divine knowledge. It is the eternal unity of all things that are, and the supreme divine of which the gods are various forms. Into it unite all the wealth of being and knowledge and power and bliss won by the sacrifice. It is the large vastness of the wide purities of Varuna and of the shining harmonies of Mitra. There, eternally stable, dwell the herds of the divine radiances of knowledge. Eternally stable, 1,000 suns at once in one place. For that is the happy field to which they here are travelling. The impeller, that is the Surya, the sun, Savitri, Savitar, of the cosmic movement and journey, pours out knowledge in us, the milk of the herds, by the dawns of the inner light, and there descend the streams of the immortal existence, followed by the single and perfect movement of Mitra Varuna, the light and the purity, the harmony and the infinity. It is the rain of heaven which these two Godheads pour down, upholding the physical existence in its fruits and the celestial in its herding radiances of illumination. That's exactly why Sri Aurobindo speaks that gods are born in two planes simultaneously. Upholding the physical existence in its fruits and the celestial in its herding radiances of illumination. Thus they create in man a force full of divine knowledge and a wide being which they guard and increase, a strewn seed for the sacrifice. This 1,000-pillared force of knowledge they make a home for themselves and dwell there in the revelations of the Word. We will come to this. It is luminous in its form, and its pillars of life have an iron strength and stability. Iron pillars of life. This is that which unites heaven and earth, will be pillared with 1,000 iron pillars, where they will make their home, because it is already stable. It's not something fluctuating. They ascend to it in the dawning, in the rising of the sun of knowledge, and looked with the eye of their divine vision on the infinite existence and the finite. So they have a poise from which they can see infinite and finite existence simultaneously. The indivisible unity of things and their multiplicity. It is a home full and large with sweetness and ecstasy of the supreme and inviolable peace and bliss, which by their cherishing and fostering protection we seek to conquer and possess.
Vladimir, I don't know if I am the only one, but I would like to hear it one more time.
I am sure it's so full. The Rishi hymns the eternal and immutable truth, of which the truth in mutable things is the veil. As Sri Aurobindo says somewhere, here in this existence everything is a symbol of that truth. We are all symbols here. So we are, in one way, we are veiled for that, and we represent it in some way, in symbolic way.
In Savitri, that's a beautiful line, no? The life you live, or something like that, conceals the light you are.
That's wonderful. I will put it here. That is the goal of the journey of the manifested Son of divine knowledge. Now, the sun has to be manifested. The sun is a symbol of the truth. Yes? But it has to manifest the divinity fully in this manifestation. It's not only the sun has to be always that radiance of some kind of radiation from which we all can die here, but also it's symbolically something else. And it may reveal one day, unexpected, something completely different. And even psychologically it's quite strange that we react to these reactions on the sun. When there is a bursting of the energy, there are so many catastrophes and so on. Psychologically we are connected. And in Chandogya it is even said that it is through the sun and not otherwise that you can find your way out of manifestation, out of this universe. You cannot find the way out if you move into the space. Yes? You will seek, this space will be endless. But to get out of it, beyond, you have to go through the sun. It's a gate. It makes sense. It makes sense even as a symbol here. So that's why he says that is the goal of the journey of the manifested Son of divine knowledge. It is the eternal unity of all things that are, and the supreme divine of which the gods are various forms. Into it unite all the wealth of being and knowledge and power and bliss won by the sacrifice. Now, a sacrifice turns to be something completely different at the end when we move into the transcendental. We will see the purpose of it differently. It is the large vastness of the white purities of Varuna and of the shining harmonies of Mitra. There, eternally stable, dwell the herds of the divine radiances of knowledge. Eternally stable. Can you imagine radiances eternally stable? What kind of plane it is? For that is the happy field to which they are here traveling. See?
The word here is I think, very significant.
Yes, here they are traveling to that stable where they can finally find their home. So there is an impeller of that travel, of their traveling, the impeller of the cosmic movement, that is Savitar, yes? Because he is the impeller, he is moving forward the sun. Pours out of knowledge in us, the milk of the herds, by the dawns of the inner light, and there descend the stream of the immortal existence, followed by a single and perfect movement of Mitra Varuna, the light and the purity, the harmony and the infinity. Now again, coming back to this impeller of the cosmic movement and journey, who pours out knowledge in us, within us. The milk of the herds, that is the knowledge, yes? Of these herds of light. They have milk, they have soma to share with us, and this soma will nourish our fire, our consciousness which knows growing. By the dawns of the inner light, and there descend the stream of the immortal existence, followed by the single and perfect movement of Mitra Varuna. The light and the purity. The light is Mitra and the purity is Varuna. The harmony is Mitra and the infinity is Varuna. It is the rain of heaven which these two Godheads pour down, upholding the physical existence in its fruits, because they are pouring down the water, and they are giving the soma the greenery, and the whole body through the greenery takes and develops, and this organic matter is also growing. And from other side, they uphold the celestial in its herding radiances of illumination. They thus create in man a force full of divine knowledge and a wide being which they guard and increase, the strewn seed of the sacrifice, this barhis with the grass covered. This 1,000-pillared force of knowledge they make a home for themselves and dwell there in the revelations of the Word. I will come to it. It is luminous in its form, and its pillars of life have an iron strength and stability. They ascend to it in the dawning, in the rising of the sun of knowledge, and looked with the eye of the divine vision on the infinite existence and the finite, the indivisible unity of things and their multiplicity. It's a supramental vision. It is a home full and large with the sweetness and ecstasy of the supreme and inviolable peace and bliss, which by their cherishing and fostering protection we seek to conquer and possess. Now it starts immediately with, those who know Sanskrit, it is very striking. Ritena ritam apihitam dhruvam suryasya yatra vimunchanti ashvam dashashata sahatasthu tadekam devanam shreshtham vapusham apashyam. By the truth is veiled that ever-standing truth of yours, where they unyoke the horses of the sun. Now, if you remember, we started with the horses, this horse, Ashwamedha, moving beyond. So there it is unyoked finally. It is ending its journey. It can rest. Huh? Yes, travel free, from light to light. So Sri Aurobindo gives comments, notes, by the truth. The active cosmic truth of things diffused and arranged in their immutability and divisibility of time and space veils the eternal and unchanging truth of which it is a manifestation. You can see in this formulation the oneness, the vision of oneness. That's the same thing. Yes? Transcendental is transcendental only because there is something of this diffusion into time and space of this veil. That's why we know it is transcendental. Otherwise it is the same thing. And for the horses of the sun, he says, the eternal truth is the goal of the divine light, which arises in us and journeys upward into higher and higher heavens through the shining upper ocean. Now, if you can imagine that, there is no end to that upper ocean. It can always rise. There is no end in rising to that ocean. So the eternal truth is the goal of the divine light which arises in us and journeys upward into higher and higher heavens through the shining upper ocean. So transcendental has no end. And the development further, what Sri Aurobindo says, will be from light to light. There will be always something to discover and to manifest. There the 10 hundreds stand still together. That one I have beheld the greatest of the embodied gods. I come back to the Sanskrit text. Dashashata saha tastu tadekam. Dashashata saha, 10 stay together there, tadekam, that one. Divanam shreshtham vapusham apashyam. I saw apashyam, shreshtham, the best, of the gods Vapusham, the gods who have Vapus. And Vapus is the beautiful body. Also it is, Sri Aurobindo translates it as an embodied among the gods. But it is actually of the beautiful gods, the best I saw, the one. Of all these most delightful gods. Yes? You can translate it also among the embodied gods. Greatest of the embodied gods. Shreshtam, Divanam, Vapusham. Because Vapus is the body, yes? But it's also a beautiful shape. It can be translated as a beautiful shape or a body. So now interpretation, I didn't know what to say more than to take the whole section of Sri Aurobindo explaining it and to look into it. Yes? We can read it separately in the text, it is all there published, or we can relate it to our studies and it will be more appropriate. So the self-luminous one is the goal of the Aryan-minded. Therefore, the seers worship him in the image of the sun. One existent. Him have the seers called by various names. Indra, Agni, Yama, Matarishva. This is a very famous verse. Yes? The phrases, that one, that truth, occur constantly in the Veda in connection with the highest and with the image of his workings here, the sun. It's interesting. There is again two images, the sun there and the sun here. In one sublime and mystic chant, the refrain returns perpetually, the vast mightiness of the gods. That one. It is from Vishwamitra, yes? Asura Tvamekam. There is the goal of that journey of the sun by the path of the truth, which we have seen to be also the journey of the awakened and illumined soul. Concealed by this truth is that truth of you, of Mitra and Varuna, where they unyoke the horses of the sun. The 10 hundreds meet there together. That one I have seen, the supreme God of the embodied gods. But in itself, the one is timeless, and our mind and being exist in time. It is neither today nor tomorrow who knoweth that which is transcendent. When it is approached, it vanishes from us. Therefore, says Sri Aurobindo, we have to grow towards it by giving birth to the gods in ourselves. Now, this is the key, I think, explanation to everything. Why we have to really grow here in consciousness. Because we can't reach him. We can't really possess that. Increasing their strong and radiant forms. That is Vapusham. That's why Vapusham. Building up their divine bodies. And this new birth and self-building is the true nature of the sacrifice. The sacrifice through which there is the awakening of our consciousness to immortality. Makes sense. We became sensitive to these words already. Our skin already reacts. Everything. So, explaining the transcendental character of the kings Varuna and Mitra, Sri Aurobindo says, but beyond our farthest skies, in the supreme ocean of light, an expanse of the highest superconscient ether, our heaven awaits us in a truth hidden by lesser truth. Even as in the inconscient night, darkness is unwrapped and protected by the ever greater darkness. Can you imagine such a beautiful picture? These gradations of light, the greater darkness and the higher light is also protected by lesser truth. So these gradations come to that surface where we live, to our consciousness from both sides. And there we have this Hiranyagarbha, we stay. Yes. And that is the truth of King Varuna. Look at this. Thither the dawns shining arise, the rivers travel, and the sun unyokes there the horses of his chariot. And Varuna contains, sees, governs all this in his vast being and his illimitable knowledge. All these oceans are his, even to the inconscient. It is Varuna's ocean. So he possesses superconscient and inconscient ocean. He is that. And its nights so opposite to their seeming, to his nature, which is that of the extended radiances of one eternal, vast sun of happy light and truth. Day and night, light and darkness are symbols of his infinity. Luminous Varuna has embraced the nights. He holds the dawns within him by his creative knowledge. Visioned, he is around every object. So this is the transcendental reality of Varuna. We are not going into some supernatural, superconscious reality only. We are moving out in this oneness of his being, embracing all ocean as one, with all the gradations of light and darkness. Consciousness and inconscient is his domain of infinity. If the purity, infinity, strong royalty of Varuna are the grand framework and majestic substance of the divine being. Now, first time we have this definition of what Varuna is. Yes? Framework and majestic substance of the divine being. He represents something of that substance, that unchanging self, so to say, from the superconscient to the inconscient. Then Mitra is its beauty and perfection of the same being. King Varuna is one who sleeps not, but is awake and mighty forever, eternally, an effective force and worker for the truth and the right. Still he acts as the guardian of the truth, rather than constitutes it, or constitutes rather through the action of other godheads, who avail themselves to his wideness and surging force. So he will constitute this truth through the help of other gods. He keeps, drives even the shining herds, but does not assemble them in the pastures. An upholder of our powers and remover of obstacles and enemies, much more than a builder of our paths. And that makes sense, because if you study all those hymns to Varuna, especially by Vasishtha, it will make a lot of sense why Varuna is so important. But Sri Aurobindo goes on and he will explain more. Who then gathers knowledge into this nodus, or links divine action in this sustainer of works? Mitra is the harmonizer. Mitra the builder. Mitra the constituent light. Mitra the god who effects the right unity of which Varuna is the substance, and the infinitely self-enlarging periphery. These two kings are complementary to each other in their nature and their divine works. In them we find, and by them we gain harmony and largeness. We see in the Godhead and increase in ourselves purity without defect, basing love faultless in wisdom. Mitra is love, faultless with Varuna. Therefore these two are a great duo of the self-finding Godhead, and the Vedic word calls them together to a vaster and vaster sacrifice, to which they arrive as the inseparable builders of an increasing truth.